Okay, Reza.
Yes, sir.
Again, we are together, and we have chosen something that I like that you initially didn't like because you said that's boring, and that is the topic of information, right? Sylvie wants to say hi.
Hello, Sylvie.
She's been digging a hole.
What's up, girl?
All right, let's talk about information because in writing the world's most dangerous places, the basic building block is information.
Mm-hmm.
And information comes from the word in and form. In other words, you're trying to get data or information and you're trying to create a structure. So the structure I create is a 1,000-page book. And people take that and they go to places and hopefully they don't get killed because the information in there is both accurate and entertaining, right? So that's basically the starting point for this conversation.
Right.
Now, most people would say, like, information is information, right? You read a book, you watch a TV show, you get on the internet. It's what's your point, right? And my point is that information is useless unless you understand the structure and the history of information. And I guess more importantly, how your mind is affected negatively by information and how sometimes the lack of information, lack of sensory input, lack of information, can heal your brain, which sounds very strange, I mean, to anyone that just reads stuff and does stuff. So let's begin. You formed some questions, which are really cool, and then we're going to create a structure out of this. We're going to create a 1-hour structure on information.
Yeah. Well, yeah, maybe this might have to take 2 episodes because it's I just thought it was such a grand topic. I was like, how do we talk about information? It's so big. But yeah, we're gonna explore it today because it's the very thing that built our civilization, but it's also the thing that today may be destroying it. So I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts about it.
So your macro is exactly right on the money. In other words, we came from nothing. People had superstition. They used the 5 senses to determine what was happening around them. We learned how to write and communicate, and of course that evolved. And here we are today being overwhelmed by information and yet severely doubting the veracity of it or the usefulness of it. Right?
Yeah.
So that's in a capsule, that's an excellent point. My opinion is, like anything, whether it's water, alcohol, oxygen, too much of something can kill you. And not understanding what it does to you in specific amounts is the first key of understanding how to use it properly.
Yeah.
So you can drown in water or you can die of thirst, right? And information is very much the same thing.
Yeah, so information, it was really important in our survival. So evolutionarily, we have our 5 senses. It's the way that we gather that information from the external world and we process. And our minds are really adapted to that. Nowadays we get such an overload of information. So in your view, how is the average person influenced, manipulated by information today? Okay,
so Marshall McLuhan, who was a Canadian who existed in the 50s and 60s in Toronto as a sort of a soothsayer and looking into the future, would talk about the global village, the electronic village, in which we actually live in a universe of information. It's like wallpaper, right? So it's not necessarily what you're saying to each other or what the billboards say or what the radio says. It's the fact that we live in this river, this ocean of content, of messaging and words and music and et cetera, et cetera. And he very accurately predicted that the medium is the message, in other words, the structure, right? Which goes back to Aristotle and the Greeks, where in 300 BC, there was a sense of wonder about facts. Because I would come to you and say, oh, my God, whoever I worship, gave me a bountiful harvest. And somebody would say, no, it rained and there was a certain amount of sun, so therefore you should have written that down. And you could have replicated that, right? So the idea of information, the idea of the written word, of having the leisure time to sit and talk about things and share ideas with people, fascinated the ancient Greeks. Now, what they would try to do is put this into a structure. And when you structure things, certain things fit in and certain things don't fit in. So you have an opinion, you have an idea. Is it borne out by fact, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you take these two ideas, the sort of the yin and the yang, the extreme amount of oversaturation of information and the lack of actual factual information, and you have to pick a point where you're comfortable existing. Right now, we don't pick that point. It's very hard to get away from information, whether it's on the internet, whether it's your phone, whether it's driving down the road, whether it's the radio, whether it's people talking to you. Unless you lived in a forest and could sit and listen to nothing. Now, see that little space there?
Mm-hmm.
That scares people in the media, because dead space means people go click.
Mm.
The average attention span, in order for someone to make a decision of whether they want to watch something, is 8 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
It's scary, and it's probably 2 seconds, because if you go on TikTok or whatever, you're like zing, 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 zing. You pretty much know what you're looking at just by its structure, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, so the starting point for this conversation is really about look at the structures of how you accept information, and don't necessarily pay too much attention to the information that's inside there.
Mm-hmm.
So a case in point is you could read The Economist, and that's a structured piece of content, right? And you can trust most of the information that you'll see in The Economist because they have fact-checking, whatever. If you're seeing something on X, and you're seeing a lot of things on X, you would have to look at the name of the person who posted that thing, whatever that comment was, and make your own decision. Do I allow that into my feed? Does it come into my structure? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So we are becoming our own editors. We have to say, no, that's garbage. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm going to hold on to that. But we don't have a structure for that.
Yeah.
We literally, there is no way to hold all the things we want to read and see and filter out all the things we don't want to read and see.
Yeah, it just takes too much time, but there
Right.
should be a system or something set up that we can rely on.
Well, it used to be the editorial system.
Mm-hmm.
So a wealthy guy would buy a newspaper, and he would hire an editor, and that editor would hire writers. And if a writer said, oh, I just talked to this guy, and he said the church is on fire, he'd say, I need 2 more sources on that.
Mm-hmm.
And 2 people unrelated to the writer would say, yes, the church is burning. It began at such and such a date, whatever. And then they would scream, church is on fire, right? And people would say, oh, the church is on fire because it was in this thing. That's gone. Right?
Yeah.
that exists in most mainstream media, but the way that you get to that is through a lot of other junk, right? That either directly conflicts with it, shades it, or twists it so that it's using the shock factor to tell you something else. Like Democrats set the church on fire, or Republicans set the church on fire, or Muslims set the church on fire. So the shading is the disease that we have with social media and the lack of editorial filters.
Yeah, so let's take a step back and kind of talk about our evolutionary beginnings and what is information in the sense of how did we used to process information and then we adapted to it. When did it start being able to be manipulated by other people?
Well, I think our initial origins are tribalism, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we lived in a community of people. Most of those people were working with each other for some benefit, whether it's food or fighting or fornicating or whatever. The idea was that everybody's from that tribe would work together. So if you had to hunt, you would have an elder, somebody who was experienced. At that time, an elder would probably be 35 years old. And he would take a young boy, who might be 12 or whatever, and they would take them into the forest. And they would use language as a way to look for certain signs, look for certain tracks, things like that. So that's the most basic form of information.
Mm-hmm.
When people learn to read and write, or through art, for example, or through song, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
most of the original communications were through singing and
Mm-hmm.
poetry or whatever, you would add emphasis to certain things.
Mm-hmm.
So if you trusted an elder and he taught you how to gather food and you could then provide for your family, what doubt would you have if he said to you that the world is flat, right?
Yeah.
So when the I shouldn't call them the ancient Greeks, but when the early Greeks began to look at this phenomena of mythology and mysticism and opinion and rumor and all this kind of stuff, they said, no, in order to be a civilized nation, we have to have a baseline for what's real and what's not real. And remember, science back then was part conjecture, part note-taking. I mean, there wasn't any hard level of science.
So it's not really about like the content, it's about the way you structure that information that was so important. Like you have tracks, you're tracking the animal while hunting, but it's when you start connecting the dots, like we're pattern-seeking animals. The structure of how you digest that information is very important. Yeah,
so you go to what I'm saying is that your source of information was typically from someone you respected, an elder. And what he told you may have been mostly true, because you would see that, yes, there's an animal, I ate. Or it could be fictional, like, oh, you're going to die in a rain of meteorites, and you don't, right? But you tend to absorb both, right? So what the Greeks tried to do is to say, look, let's get rid of this opinion and mythology and sort of vague perception, and let's come up with a way to prove that things are true. It goes through a filter, goes into a structure. If you put things in through our filter, then, and if they come out the other side and they are proven to be true, then we accept that as a society, and then we build on that, right? This is the origins of science, and it's also the origins of philosophy and history and everything else. That process was a joy, right? So a person would be educated to listen and look at all the things around him and come up with his structure, his way of proving it to be true. Whether it was a debate, whether it was, is this person guilty or not guilty? Did he kill that person or whatever? But the point is that the idea of things being right or wrong was very diffuse, was very general at that time, and people didn't know what was over the horizon.
Right.
They didn't know why the Earth turned or didn't turn, or the sun did this or the moon did that. You're comparing the very origins of human knowledge, which is seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, emotional reactions to things, right? And that's how we used to learn.
So information is out there. It's like it exists in the universe, but we are the receptor. We're taking in.
We're this little wet, sweaty sensor that if you go bang, you pay attention. It doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It just means somebody went bang and you were like, oh, I'm paying attention now, right? And this is the point about, fast forward to the internet, to sort of prurient interest, where you see a naked woman or you see a bomb go off or you see something that shocks you. That gets your attention.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean it's true. But the point is that primitive reaction, using your senses to form like opinions and structure, was driven by your sensory input, right? And we have to be very careful, and then we'll talk about this, is we think we know everything, right? We have a vast ability to absorb many things, from colors to smells to dates to numbers to whatever. But we can only absorb a tiny little bit at a time. Very small amount. So, you've got the numbers in terms of what the brain can actually hold. But if you have 10 flat screen TVs on with 10 different programs, you think you're absorbing it.
Right.
But you're only paying attention to tiny bits and pieces of each one.
So in this social media world, we're getting bombarded with information, and people think they know more and they understand more, but in actuality, they aren't even. It's coming in, and it's just their brain is getting rid. I have a statistic here. It says the brain receives 11 million bits per second of sensory input. So
11 million bits is quite a bit.
But conscious awareness can only handle 10 to 50 bits per second.
Which is not very much if you're paying for internet.
That means most of it is just...
So here's what's interesting. So yes, we have a restricted input, right? But there are some aids to that. So for example, if everything I say rhymes, and I say we climb, and then there's a sign, that pattern helps us remember what I just said. If I add music to it, which is a series of, mathematical progressions on notes, it also helps us remember, which is why we can remember songs 20, 30, 40, 50 years later that we don't even like, but we know the words to that song and we know the melody, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there are aids to letting you absorb information, but the way that it's presented now is not just one input, but through multiple streams, right? And it's very hard to remember all that. And you think you're remembering, just like when you talk on the phone and you drive a car or you're texting and you're trying to type, you think you're absorbing this, but you're actually only absorbing a very tiny part of that.
Okay, so let's begin on the opposite side of the spectrum, not with overload, but with absence. So what happens with your brain in the absence of information?
Okay, so key thing here, information overload causes stress.
Mm-hmm.
Humans don't like a lot of noise, words, ideas, things happening, right? It makes the person emotionally want to close down or run away. If you take, like you say, the opposite of that, and you go out into the woods and you just sit
Mm-hmm.
and you watch and you listen and you smell, you calm down. If you go into an isolation tank, like literally you tend to focus inwardly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Up to a point. Because after an hour of no sensory input, people start going crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So again, the brain is like this giant sponge that can be overloaded, but if you deprive it of information, it has a certain point at which it calms down,
Yeah.
and at a certain point at which it seeks more input.
Right. So
And
it
that's
starts
really-
seeking input and creating.
Correct, because it gets nervous.
Uh-huh.
What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? And this is part of the appeal of social media. We're like literally wondering what's going on. So we get up at 2 in the morning
Mm-hmm.
and we check. Did I miss something? Did something happen? You know, and this idea that this I'm missing is part of that social bond, but it's also part of that heightened sensory fear that you're not part of something.
Yeah.
So again, I mean, what's the lesson? The lesson is when you're trying to learn something or absorb something or be part of something, you can overload yourself and
Yeah.
you can actually not learn anything.
Yeah.
You can underserve yourself in terms of content, and you
Yeah.
can have a very narrow, isolated view of what's happening if you're
Uh-huh.
going to a country.
Uh-huh.
A good example of this is in 1955, if you said, I want to go to Afghanistan, that was information, but it wasn't like there. It wasn't on TV. It wasn't on the radio. There were some books that had been written and published by Westerners about Afghanistan. There's plenty of history books. And you would have a very limited source of material to absorb about this, and you would have a very limited number of people to talk to that actually been to Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
In the 90s, when the internet was just beginning, there was no real adaptation of the internet to provide information on Afghanistan, which is probably why my book was so interesting back then.
Mm-hmm.
Today, there's too much information. If I go on Google and I type in Afghanistan, I'll get
Yeah.
thousands and thousands. Now, are the first page of results from Afghanistan what I want? Probably
Right.
not, right?
Right.
So
So you think you're learning something, but how can you possibly parse out that information to see if it's real? It's almost like there was a happy medium, like with
no,
books
there's no,
and
there's
stuff,
no happy
because
medium. There's only one process. Media has perfected it for years. Remember, I was telling you about the editorial process of what is important, checking that whatever this person is saying is buttressed or supported by these other two people, if you want to call it that. Using multiple sources to, okay, what year was this created? How much does this cost? How much does it cost? Or whatever.
But isn't that why a book is better?
A book is fact checked.
It slows you down.
Yes.
It's fact checked. You have resources. Like The World's Most Dangerous Places, there's so many resources in that book. You know that you're getting expert advice. You know that it's fact checked. And even as you're processing that information, you're reading through the page, so it slows the whole
Let's be
process
careful. So
down.
The World's Most Dangerous Places is funny. It's not a dry book that tells you, like, go here, do that. It breaks down your normal perception of a dangerous place into something that's more digestible.
And manageable.
By humanizing
Doesn't
why
freak you
people
out
are
as
fighting.
much.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
by humanizing why people are fighting and what they're fighting about.
Right.
And going into the idea that this place is dangerous, but this place might not be.
Yeah.
You make it approachable, right? So
Yeah.
that you can take off things in bite-sized chunks.
Yeah.
Because most people are just terrified to go anywhere that looks dangerous, and that's not a healthy concept. That's that overload factory, right?
Right.
Factory.
So that's kind of what I was asking about the happy medium. Like, was the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s like almost better for processing information because people, the way that they digested information was so different. It was a little slower.
It's not driven by what year the book was written. It's driven by what your interest is in that country.
Yeah.
And what you want to do there. So, case in point, Afghanistan.
Yeah.
You can go to Afghanistan. You can buy a ticket. You can land there, get a visa, hire a guide, take you here, take you there, eat at a restaurant, stay at a hotel.
But that's
back.
very human, right? That's the way we're supposed to process information. Nowadays, it's like you go online, you get 1,000 videos of Afghanistan, but it's through someone else's experience, and you almost get this feeling that you've been there and you haven't been there. You haven't participated in the actual journey.
Correct. Just like when you watch Leave It to Beaver, these old 50s sitcoms about California. It's not California. It's actually a lot.
Uh-huh.
A movie studio's lot where they paint the grass green, and, whatever. So, but the point is this: you have to build a filter system. So, for example, if you're going to Afghanistan and you want to enjoy yourself, forget history, forget opinion, just get into the mechanics of how you get there. Okay. Yeah. Secondly, what do you want to do when you get there? Okay, fine. There's a wealth of information about there, but some things have been blown up and some things still exist. Some places are out of bounds, some places are easy to get to. And then you start building a filter. Now, there's no shortage of YouTube videos, there's no shortage of opinions, there's no shortage of local news, or you could saturate yourself with 1,000 different things. And if you use the news media, you would assume everybody's killing each other, that they're shooting guns at each other, and it's dangerous or whatever. But it's not. So my point is that building a structure that allows certain bits of information to come in, double checking, triple checking, puts them in the box, and they are real, and you can make decisions based on that.
Yeah.
So this sounds very pedantic, sounds like very obvious, but once you try to apply this, you'll say, no, it's not that easy to form opinions based on fact about places or things or people you don't know or haven't been to or never met. So
So you brought up a bunch of good topics there, but you've spent your whole life verifying information in dangerous places. What are like simple habits that everyday people can use?
So I like to think that wherever I go, there is a level of normalcy in the place I'm going to, regardless of the insanity that you expect. People still have to eat. Mm-hmm. People still have to go to the bathroom. They still have people, friends, whatever. So there's a level of normalcy, right? And there's a level of abnormality. Mm-hmm. So I try to differentiate the two. If I'm going into an actual battle, like an actual fight, there are very specific parameters. Like you remember in Ukraine, right? They have the 0 line, the 1 line, 2 line. There's measurements of how dangerous it is, and there's all kinds of drones flying around and maps and things like that. So the closer you get to something, the more it makes sense. The problem is that you don't have access to it here. And this is a myth that we have, that because I have the internet, I can get any piece of information I want. No. Contextually, no. Maybe physically you can get a map, but you're saying there's almost no structure behind it. So you have to build a structure. You have to say, okay, here I can get this. Here I can get a map. I can get a ticket. I can get a news report from a local newspaper. I can get a phone number or email of someone who lives in this town. Yeah. I can put together the basic outlines of what I want. Now I move forward. Now I have to build more localized information by being there. And if before I go down this road to that village, because there might be fighting, I will then rebuild my structure so that my toolkit is made out of the most recent, most granular bits of information. Mm-hmm. But I don't do that when I start my trip. Mm-hmm. Just like if I want to read a book, I got to start with which book do I want to read, why do I want to read it, and I start on page 1, and I discard it if it's not giving me what I want. Mm-hmm. So informing opinions about politics, about danger, about safety, about whatever, there's a simple, like, step-by-step process of gathering information, checking to see if it's accurate, and then forming that opinion.
What's the value today in misleading people?
Well, okay, so we go back to, like, being the caveman looking for the lion in the jungle or a giant in the savannah or whatever, and we are hyper alert to sensory overload and shocking things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the landscape that we operate in, whether it's Google, whether it's X, whether it's Facebook or whatever, exists as a commercial enterprise. It does not exist for your well-being. It's designed to get you to engage. It's designed to basically steal your attention, and it provides minimal benefit to you if this is your world you live in, right? You can say, oh, Granny bought a new car, or my nephew got married or whatever, but that's about it. By doing that, though, you're giving your personal data there, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I said, oh, this guy just said that he's got pizza at $2, whatever, but he's got a fake name, and I don't know where he lives, is that information beneficial to you? No, it's bullshit. It's something that caught your attention, but it doesn't necessarily provide any information to you.
Mm-hmm.
Multiply that times 100,000, right?
Yeah.
So
scary.
That information overload goes back to our original point that you have to say, whoa, stop. I have to stop overloading myself, just like I have to stop drinking alcohol or drinking water because I'm going to drown.
Mm-hmm.
I won't get information from it.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, it's as a journalist, you learn this skill because you have to write a story about something. It has to fit in a certain size, like 5,000 words or whatever.
Yeah.
And everything everybody tells you has to be sort of backed up by, is that actually true? Like, so-and-so killed that guy. Well, did he actually kill that guy?
Yeah.
And sometimes you have competing information and sometimes you have corroborating information. But the journalistic process should give you a general guideline on how to build your structures to make sure your information is correct.
Yeah. It's scary in this postmodern, post-truth era. I mean, like, how do they're like convincing people that even everybody has their own truth. People are having a really big problem with kind of objective information.
Right,
and
because we're dealing with emotions now. So
yeah,
I don't know if you like this but you find out very quickly on the internet that people don't like something,
mm-hmm.
or they think this is foolish or whatever. And then what you do is you remove yourself from the actual mechanics of understanding what's going on because it's not provided, and you get to the opinion of something, which everybody has an opinion. And that's exactly what the Greeks are trying to scrape away, is that, like assholes, everybody has an opinion. But it doesn't help anybody move forward solving a problem.
Right.
So again,
this is kind of like Enlightenment and the Enlightenment ideals when people kind of... and it's happened a few times through history. Yeah.
So the Greeks are famous for inventing this structure about information. And it was then transplanted to India by Alexander the Great. And they had their own structures, but they basically embraced this, like, oh, this is a great way to make sure something is real, and it's a great way to build a foundation for science and math and things like that. And then it became very popular in Baghdad with the Arabs. Mm-hmm. And they began translating all these Greek books because they thought this was a great map for civilization.
Uh-huh.
Meanwhile, in Europe, it all got flushed away with the barbarians and sort of the religious...
Dark Ages?
Yeah, well, not only the Dark Ages, but also the religious. So religion actually erased a lot of the structures that people would use to determine if something is real or not real. Mm-hmm. It actually combated science. Because if a miracle can create something, why do you need science? Mm-hmm. If you have to worship the king who calls himself a god and a king at the same time, why do you need to go to a doctor or a scientist or a mathematician, right? So it created the downfall of sort of logical thinking in Europe, which was restored sort of in the 12th century when people are like, oh my God, we can measure this and we can tell if the sun goes here or there. Like,
right.
So
This is
you have the Enlightenment, which is like, science is wonderful. It explains so much. And I have giant pustules on my body, but if I do this, they go away. It's not because I'm a sinner.
Right.
So it came back, and now we're actually feeling the reversal of like, oh, we don't like science.
Right.
I mean, we're literally living in a time, which is hard to believe.
It's almost round two. And it's almost like AI can be seen as a religion.
Well, we'll get into AI, but let me just state this clearly. We have a government in America that, given a choice between science, facts, and logic statistics, will go with opinions and theology, meaning that just believe this.
Yeah.
We have a sun god. We have someone who paints things gold and believes that the things that he says are more important than actual facts, right?
Yeah.
So you and I can get into an argument very quickly. If you're a supporter of the current government and I say, no, they're wrong, and you go, whoa, what do you mean they're wrong? And well, I got my little box that I can filter information through, and I'm like, no, that's not true. No, that's not true. That's true. That goes in. Other people like, just believe the plan, just follow the leader and everything will be fine. It's like, that's superstition.
Right.
That's exactly what we spent thousands of years getting away from.
Right.
So AI, and again, AI is fascinating in how bad it is, not how good. Sorry, I just hit the. AI is fascinating to me because it can be good or bad. So if I feed into a learning language model the entire Encyclopedia Britannica, and you have to search something for your hold on, let me just get this right. If you have to search something for your science project, it'll do it. It'll say, okay, in 300 words, why did Rome fall? It'll do it, and it'll actually be pretty accurate. If you ask it an opinion about something, it'll dig in, but it won't necessarily have the right answer. If you ask it about something it knows nothing about, like, tell me all about Rez's childhood, it'll just look at you and go, I don't know. Or it'll make it up.
Or make something up.
Right. Or hallucinate, as they call it. But the worst iteration of, I guess what you'd call AI, is when someone buys an AI company and begins to program it to support a certain belief or philosophy that is counterintuitive to human knowledge. And I literally have seen on Grok, which is an artificial intelligence product that you see on X.
That's right. And
it'll say, this is untrue. And you'll say, well, what's untrue? Like, this is a New York Times article about somebody who did this. And it'll argue, and it'll say that the New York Times has a history of being wrong, which of course it does. It also has a history of being right.
Right.
But it'll focus on the negative aspect.
Interesting.
To support a statement. But
so it's becoming biased.
Yeah,
someone's programming that
bias
in there as a built-in bias.
And as humans, we have built-in bias. So if you say, "Oh, do you like this vegetable?" Like, "Oh, I hate that vegetable." Like, I love that vegetable, right?
Yeah. Under
most conditions, you and I could argue out or discuss the fact, and we could agree that I don't like it, you don't like it, or whatever, or we'll try this one. But when it's politicized, or when it's sort of, hyper irritated with a whole bunch of sort of other meaning that's not related to the topic, then it becomes divisive.
Most people don't think of themselves as the target in the information war. Who's fighting for their attention?
Well, you're a target on both sides. If you wear a red hat, which is not illegal or unusual, people say, oh, you must be a supporter of this political movement. You're like, no, it's just a red hat. But it's like, no, no longer, right? And factually we know that a hat that's red does not necessarily mean that you support any political party. It's just you chose a red hat for visibility, or whatever. It's your favorite color. So this is what's happening now, is that logical structure of information to get to a fact is being poisoned by thousands and thousands of biased opinions.
Yeah. It's all opinions out there, and all these people are, I feel like people just in the everyday world have become more opinionated. Like, everybody seems like they know something about everything.
But an opinion is not a fact, right?
So let's talk about, I want to talk to you about the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Right.
It's like everybody seems like they're an expert on something. They're like, oh, this is the way it is. It's right. So let's get into that a little bit.
So ask a 5-year-old kid how a spaceship works, and they very rarely will say, I don't know. They'll say, oh, there's a rocket and a flame, and it goes up into space, which is correct, right? It's not necessarily how you build a rocket ship and how to go in space. So we see so many things in our everyday life that we have no idea how they physically work or how they're put together, but we kind of get a general sense of how they work.
Yeah.
And from that comes a level of confidence that we know how other things work. And if we're emboldened to explain things, we assume that we're correct in our explanation of those things. We don't go into it by saying, you can argue me out of that position, which is, again, a part of knowledge, right?
Yeah.
So
which is exactly the approach we should have.
Right. So let's say I don't know you're from Philadelphia or someplace, and I say, I hate Philadelphia because of X. And you go, that's not true, Robert. It's just literally not true. I should be able to say, oh, I'm sorry. You actually know the answer. You can prove to me that I'm wrong, and I'm going to change my opinion. Mm-hmm. We don't live in that world anymore.
No.
We look for things where other people agree with our biases, and whether it's politics or whether it's, should we invade Venezuela or whatever, it's just like people are sort of into camps now.
Yeah, why is this dangerous?
Because that's not how logic and science works. Sometimes things we really don't agree with are true, and we just don't want to admit it, so we don't pay attention to it, right?
1,000%.
I mean,
it's like if you go to someone and you tell them there's no afterlife. There's a big...
Life is a big disappointment. Life is you are created by two people you never met. You grow up in a world that doesn't care if you exist, and then you die and you get thrown in the ground, and people may or may not remember you, but they get on with other things, right? And at the end of the day, it's just a really depressing thing to do every day. Like, oh, one day closer, one day closer. So the flip side is that, that limited time we have could be invested in doing something that gives us a sense of reward and gives people around us a sense of accomplishment and benefit. And this is what we aspire to as humans, right? Mm-hmm. To make things better, to do things that benefit other people. We don't get up in the morning and say, how can I punch the shit out of that guy? I hate that guy. I hate this food. I hate that country. I just, I don't know. Oh, yeah, look at that click like.
Yeah.
When I watch them chase migrants around and people, that's what I voted for. And it's like, you're next. Yeah. It's like, you're next.
Yeah.
So the idea of not doing things that make the world better is an anathema to humans. But again, back to information, we want to absorb things that make us smarter and that make us realize just how much more we need to learn. To even like, the next peak kind of thing. Like you climb a mountain, you go, oh, geez, there's a whole range of mountains that are much higher than this one that I couldn't even see.
Yeah.
That's the reality of life.
Yeah. So do you suggest that people get scientifically educated so that it helps them build that framework of knowing what is true and what is false?
I'll say this. Remember, we just talked about you're one day closer to death every day. Choose how you spend that day wisely. Why not say, okay, tomorrow I should probably do something that's memorable as opposed to predictable. I'm not going to be enslaved by my phone. I'm not going to be enslaved by people's opinions. I'm going to actually do something that I'm interested in, and I'm going to invest the time. Now, one of the things that people always talk about is me, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the proven facts of isolation is that you turn inwards. This is my podcast. When people are isolated, when they meditate, when they sit in a quiet place with no distractions, they start thinking about the value of their life. They start thinking about the meaning of things and about their future. Things are actually important, right? That then can shape their next steps and their opinions. Mm-hmm. So I recommend that people get used to solitude. Don't seek out information and data and entertainment. Seek out solitude and then use that to form your opinions.
Right. It's sounding pretty good right now, solitude. So then...
we'll all be in our little cubicles.
Yeah. So let's talk about another phenomenon that shapes information loss. Not the lack of it, but the destruction of information.
So if you imagine information as a river that's flowing by, right? Just data, all these things. we assume that we can go back at any point in any time and reconstruct that or dig into that and find out what happened in 1985 or 2002 or whatever. And we also lean on the internet as being this giant free library that holds all this information for us when we get around to looking for it. The reality is that the internet is disappearing every day. And that's really disturbing. And as a writer...
Interesting.
Yeah, so I can tell you that I've written dozens of articles, and I mean, spent all my life publishing things and making videos and things like that. And you go back online and you go, okay, give me all that stuff. It's like, it's gone. Or it's what they call atomized. So I write something for Vice that's got 40 different pieces to it. You used to go there and go, oh, click, okay, here's the table of contents. I'll read this. Okay, next one. That's all gone. That's all. They're shattered in thousands of pieces. So that the story about South Sudan I did, which has a very kind of bold and vast sort of scope to it, you might find a piece of it, but you won't. When you click on next, you won't. It'll go to a 404, right?
Yeah.
So we live in a 404 world.
Damn.
Well, this is sad because one of the things that writers and journalists that do nonfiction pride themselves on is that, okay, I captured that moment.
Yeah.
So for example, I was the only guy with the Special Forces team right after 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's historic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I took pictures and videos and whatever.
Yeah.
And I wrote a fantastic article for a magazine called National Geographic Adventure, which doesn't exist, which has no record of that article anywhere on the internet and no mention of it.
But this is one of the things the internet promised us. The promise was that we were going to get all the information. It was going to be there forever.
But who's they?
Exactly. And now...
They were guys who said, hey, put all your photos here for free. And you did that. And
right.
Goes, sorry, we're shutting down. And like,
yeah.
My photos. I spent hours,
Or your DNA, or I mean, there's example after example of it.
You're going to say, but the internet is going to preserve me forever. They'll be Googling my name. Like, no, they won't.
Yeah.
They'll be like, Reza, Chinese guy? I don't know. I can't find anything.
Yeah.
The point is that...
But there's too much information now. It's just being uploaded every day. Our attention spans are getting shorter, and then they're just throwing out the old stuff.
Right, but I think your point is a little different. I'm saying that you as a human being only exist for a very short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
You have people you love, you have people you hate, you have people you want to be friends with, whatever. You did things, you have pictures, whatever. You have to preserve that.
Mm-hmm.
You have to write your life story. You have to put your pictures up there and put captions underneath. And you have to make sure that you're not relying on Facebook, Apple, Google, or whatever to preserve your future, because you won't exist. You'll just, like in the blink of an eye, if you do that,
Mm-hmm.
you'll be gone. Poof. Do you think about that? Like a book. Okay, fine. It takes a while to like wear a book out and throw it in the trash. And most people are very reticent to throw a hardbound book in the trash, right?
Yeah.
They show up over and over again.
Oh yeah, 1,000%.
But the internet is like just one wrong backslash.
Yeah.
Can atomize an entire magazine, right? And look at Vice. What a mess Vice is, right?
Yeah.
Look at all these magazines that don't exist anymore. They're gone.
Yeah, it's interesting. We're throwing it all up into the cloud, and then it's all... There's going to be no record of our civilization at some point.
Show me the cloud. You got a piece of data over here, a piece of data over there, and they're like, oh, don't worry. No, what they'll do is they'll charge more money for people to store their data, and people will say, I can't do that, right?
Yeah.
So I keep all my pictures here. I don't rely on servers or anything other than the things I control and I own, right?
Yeah.
Now maybe nobody cares, but I'm just saying, as a human being, if you believe in truth,
But you have it.
and you create your own truth, then you better get to it, and don't rely on Google to find you and explain, or Wikipedia or whatever.
Right. That's good
whatever's
advice. Yeah, that stuff's not going to be there anymore.
Right.
Yeah, we were talking about this, and you said the lack of information can actually push you to the right information. What do you mean by that?
So I'm saying, if you're really curious about something, and there's a lot of hobbyists, they're like, there's a 1961 Land Rover, but it only had 2 doors, and I can't find it. You get pushed into these esoteric groups of people who are obsessed with finding everything they can about things that are weird or odd, right?
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's travel, like remember the Black Flag Cafe, which still exists.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people are like, hey, I'm traveling to Curacao and I have no idea like what to do. Like, boom, well, I was just in Curacao, whatever. So
the Black Flag Cafe was your forum. Where a bunch of people would get on, share travel stories.
They still do. It's a real-time forum for people who want to meet other people. It's got nothing to do with me. Like, I don't say, shut up, or this is what I think. I set it up as sort of a real-time, dangerous places sort of where you can meet people and talk about stuff. But what I'm saying is that there are little pockets of people who are obsessed with collecting brochures. FAS, Federation of Scientists, collects all this stuff that's so amazing, and yet it's so esoteric, but it's factual stuff sitting on a free website. Now, in a blink of an eye, it could disappear, right? Yeah. So my point is, we as humans are ephemeral. We don't exist forever. And they used to build statues, right? Now they just tear them down and melt them into stuff. But the internet is not a statue. It's not a book. It's not going to be there to preserve your legacy or to explain to your great grandkids what you did for a living, right?
Yeah.
So just remember that.
That was good advice. We live in a time where emotions spread faster than facts. How can individuals keep their thinking clear when everything is designed to provoke a reaction? You touched on this earlier, but...
Well, information's been weaponized, right? So because people don't have these structures or these filters, they see something, whether it's Michael Jackson fighting with Einstein or something, and they absorb it. And they go, that's funny, but there's also a subtle absorption of something that's completely fictional, right?
Yeah.
Whereas did you read a book about the life of Einstein? No, you didn't, right? But you know who Einstein is. But you're absorbing stuff that's really ridiculous.
Yeah.
Maybe we could live in a post-truth world. Maybe it doesn't matter that nothing's real and everything's false and you're bombarded by 500,000 things. So we'll just let people do what they want. But there will be a time where people will say, wow, things don't work very well because we weren't paying attention. We didn't fix this.
I can't even imagine that. Like, how would the world even function? Seems like everything would break. Now. I know.
We're in that world now. We're
on the precipice of everything breaking down. Did you see the last Mission Impossible movie? Man, it focuses kind of on this issue. It's like this AI that's kind of overtaking everything and like the systems of the world because nobody knows what's true and what's false. So it's like the whole structure of the world.
No, but talk to a Palestinian or a Sudanese or a Ukrainian about what's real, and they'll say, "Oh, I can tell you what's real." Right?
But you can really see this kind of shooting off World War III.
Yeah, but there's a line at which your life becomes more and more difficult, and you're less and less happy, and you have less and less things. And you realize that you haven't been paying attention to the basic building blocks of society. Like the things that are happening now on social media that are very entertaining are probably the worst possible thing that could happen because we're normalizing extreme actions against vulnerable people, right?
Totally.
We're normalizing the destruction. Like today, they're going to take apart the Department of Education. They set up the Department of Education because people were stupid in America. They weren't getting a standardized education. They're all being schooled off in, places where they didn't learn the things. If they came together in a job, they had different levels of education, right? Mm-hmm. That kind of stuff is really scary. Destroying the process. Yeah.
Why is that important?
Because you and I share a lot of things, and I don't know if you went to high school. I went to high school. You went to college. I didn't go to college. But we share a level of education where I speak a certain language, you speak a language, you have a certain understanding of geographical things and philosophical things, so we can communicate. If you were homeschooled and you were homeschooled in some wacky belief system that included some of the things like physics and math, you might argue with me that, no, that's not true. That doesn't work that way. Mm-hmm. And I would say, but that's not true. And this is where the Greeks came in, right? By saying, I know you're a nice guy. I know you came from the country, but that's just not true. This is true. This is a true fact. This is a real thing.
So there needs to be a certain level of shared understanding, and then we keep building upon
Correct. So, for example,
to thrive.
the Ten Commandments, there's nothing wrong with the Ten Commandments,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not actually laws.
Mm-hmm.
We actually have laws that you need to learn, right? There are things.
This is the Dunning-Kruger effect in action. It's like
Right.
people can take that and have so much confidence that they can lead a good life, and that's the way it is. But
when TV Dr. Oz tells us that the best way to save on healthcare is not to get sick, that's a great idea, but it's not why people seek healthcare. They can
Right.
have all kinds of reasons why they need healthcare. I'm just saying that this is the effect of the stupidity factor, where it's easier to be stupid and to react to things than to actually examine them and fact check them.
right. So if someone wanted to build a more resilient daily information diet, what would you tell them to add or cut out completely?
I'd say start with nothing. Start with a day without any input. No
Mm-hmm.
TV, no internet, whatever. And then what are you hungry for? At the end of that day, what did you feel you missed?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has their own things. I mean, I like old cars. I like war zones. I like all kinds of weird things. I start building those things into my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, this guy's really interesting. Now, I'll give you a really bizarre example. I'm interested in 318 Mopar engines.
Mm.
There's only one guy that knows everything about that. And he's a fascinating guy. He's an old guy, chain smokes or whatever. But he just talks to you about this specific engine, right? He used to be an automotive journalist. And I'm like, I'm comforted with this guy not bullshitting me, not trying to sell me anything. No, he doesn't get paid money to be on YouTube. I don't pay him money. But I have one little piece of information. Now, next thing is mercenaries in Sudan. I'm tracking mercenaries in Sudan. Okay, so I add another little element of a guy who does OSINT, who tracks planes. And I'm like, okay, that guy comes into my little bucket because he's gone through my filter and he's correct. And he now adds to my information. Now, I've only got two sources of information, but I'm going deep as opposed to wide, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is my point. I don't need to know what they're serving at the dinner with the MBS at the White House. I don't need to know what the president of Ecuador said yesterday. But I'm slowly adding into my world, my little framework, things that are important to me. And this is the most important step in being someone who's happy, is not wondering about things, but knowing things. And should you choose to do something about it, let's say you're politically inclined, you can then focus your efforts. And that's my point, focus, right?
Yeah.
Bring truth in, send truth out. So like in my little efforts on social media, I try to say to people, okay, there's the clown, right? He's making you laugh, he's making you cry, he's making you angry. Here's a little bit of history about that thing that he's talking about. You know, cold water of actual facts from a document, and I link usually the document to it. This I find to be very healthy because there's so much attempt to steer you away from important things that you end up, forest for the trees, right? there's so much stuff you don't even know where you are anymore. So the less you have in your life, the more focused you'll be.
Yeah, your brain is just kind of,
Remember I
can't
mentioned
make
The
sense of
Economist.
anything.
There's nothing wrong with reading one magazine. There's nothing wrong with reading one newspaper, right? You may, you're biased. Like, no.
That's what I used to say to people. It's like not just about reading books. It's about reading the right books.
It's about reading the whole book.
Yeah.
That's the point, right? Is depth rather than width.
Yeah.
Don't go shallow, wide, go deep down.
But then people can say you're being biased by just reading that book. But it's like, but you're not biased because you're also using a structure to get to why that particular book is telling you the truth.
But these are tent poles. So you're biased
because you can read a book on UFOs written by some wacko, or you can read a book on UFOs written by SETI.
But let's
completely different things.
Let's pick a more important thing. So let's say you're interested in current events and you want to know about Sudan, or you want to know about Israel, you want to know about Gaza, you want to know about Europe, whatever, Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
Read deep on people that go through this process of fact-finding. Read deep, right? And then read another one and read deep and then see how they fit and read deep. And then your input should be through some factual reminder, like this is what's happening today, that's what's happening this week or whatever. Again, by being very selective about your data inputs, you can be calmer about decision making.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm not saying don't like scroll.
Yes.
Sora or whatever, AI entertainment you've picked, TikTok, but don't ingest that into your brain, right?
Yeah.
So.
All right, so we've talked about propaganda, we've talked about marketing, we're talking about information.
Oh, wait, so no, but we have another hour in which we talk about propaganda.
Yeah.
We have another hour we talk about psychographics, right? These are all perversions of that information stream we're talking about. This is the basic building block that if I want to travel to a dangerous place or I want to do something that might kill me, I need to have good information. I need to have factual, easy to understand, easy to remember information. And if I have too much information or if I have incorrect information, I will probably do something stupid, right?
Let's bring that up. When has that happened? Was there a moment where information you trusted turned out to be wrong? And how did you recover?
Okay.
Do you have a story? Yeah. Because that's
I
interesting.
can simplify this by saying that when I go into a situation where people are trying to kill me or other people around me, I'm very focused and very targeted in terms of how much exposure I want, how much time I spend, or whatever. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When I take a day off or I'm not focused on that, I usually get into trouble. Like when I'm not thinking about what I'm doing. So the one time I got kidnapped was when I was yelled at by my wife for doing all this intense combat stuff in like Liberia and Chechnya. So I said, I'm going to go for a hike through Panama. And I ended up getting kidnapped. When I was in Peru with the
not just through Panama though, through the Darien Gap, one of
right.
the most dangerous.
When I was in Peru, I was setting up meetings with drug labs, right? And so I decided to take a day off, and I got hit by a car on a motorcycle. And so I mean, just
interesting.
When I get out of that space, I do stupid things, right? So, but at the end of the day, you have a limited amount of eyeball time, of intellectual time, and emotional time. And because your brain has got a filter that you may not be aware of, it's looking for the candy, the exciting stuff, the bright, shiny, explosive, purient
those
imagery.
Those dopamine hits.
And then social media then recasts your feed to get more of that.
Yeah.
Like, here's a good example. I'll flip through social media. I'll make the mistake of stopping for like 15, 30 seconds to watch something.
Yeah.
And then they just assume that's all I want. That's all I want, right? Like if knife reviews or belly dancing or car race, whatever. And it's just like, stop. No, I don't want that much stuff. So anyway.
So people have this false idea that they're in control. They're just not in control.
Well, on social media,
of what they're viewing and what they're seeing.
But my point is that the less you intake, and the cliche of sitting down with a book versus thumb scrolling or doom scrolling.
I think humans have to give ourselves too much credit. We like to think of our brains as a computer, but they function almost more like a trash can.
Well, but people are developing content based on the fact that you're not paying attention. Mm-hmm. Like almost 99% of the Marvel superhero movies or most of the stuff you see on Netflix. I think they assume that you also have your phone and you're checking your text because whatever's on that screen is predictable. Right? Yeah. And then there's like a boom and you might look up away from your dancing squirrel video.
It's true, yeah.
But at the end of the night, what has your brain done? It's like running around the block 5,000 times going, oh my God, I'm so exhausted.
Yeah, totally.
I'm not smarter, I'm just exhausted.
Yeah. Do you suggest people delete their social media, get rid of this stuff?
No, social media is a tool. It's like a gun.
Okay, yeah, it's like a gun. It's like a tool. But man, it's it's also like crack. It's also like heroin.
Of course it's crack, but so's alcohol, so's cocaine, so's everything else.
I'm saying if you have a good idea on it, if you were going to jump on social media, it's almost better to jump on it with a critical and a skeptical point of view get on it so you kind of understand what people are doing. 5 minutes, get off it.
Okay, well, there's a world.
Detox.
There's a world where little
back.
Bangladeshi kids teach themselves AI, create fake avatars, create products or videos out of things they know nothing about, auto-translate, and you can see, like, have the script written by AI. And make money. Okay,
so what's more dangerous? You spent your life going to these dangerous places. You're getting information, you're racking it up, you're learning about all these things, and then you're putting it in a digestible form, you're giving it to people. Is it more dangerous? Is that more of a dangerous world, or is our social media landscape sitting at home ingesting this more dangerous?
So here's the weird thing. I always say the most dangerous thing is ignorance, which means lack of knowledge about something. The opinion was formed when you had to go search out. Like, I literally became a fellow of the Royal Geographical Society to use their library to research Borneo, right? Like, this is how mission focused I was, right? And so being ignorant, what I thought back then was not working hard enough to get answers to your questions. Now, fast forward 2025, being ignorant is being awash in an ocean of bullshit. And not be able to find the things that are real and relevant, right? And just having opinions formed for you. Now, what does that mean? That means when I'm watching people murder people in Gaza, in Sudan, in Ukraine, and people don't do anything about it, I'm like, so why don't they do that here? Like, if you don't care about anything and you can watch it in real time and there's all kinds of cool videos and you're still not responding in a meaningful way, that's extremely dangerous.
Yeah. You sent me something from a Pew Research study, and they did a study where they were seeing how many people understood what they were looking at and then how many people didn't understand. There was quite a few people that actually understood what was happening in the social media landscape and kind of how they were getting manipulated. And the conclusion they came to was that they became quite apathetic about it. They still engaged in it, and even though they knew what was happening,
that's Russian active measures. So active measures is the science of bombarding people with multiple competing ideas about something until they get so confused they don't care. They're just watching. They're apathetic, right?
Yeah.
People say, how do people go to their execution and just get shot? Because they tell them, well, oh, not today, tomorrow, today, tomorrow, and then when they get shot, they're like, oh, I guess I'm getting shot today, right? It's like, it's very bizarre. It's the information overload numbs the senses and removes the need for urgency. And, we were in Ukraine. You're in a nice hotel. There's a coffee maker. There's a TV. It doesn't seem unusual. Looks like any American city. And all of a sudden, boom. And it's like, no, they're trying to kill people here. I'm in freaking Europe, and they're trying to kill people in a civilized city. There's no battle going on here. They're just trying to murder people, right? So if that can happen there, why can't it happen here? That's a great discussion to have, right?
Yeah.
It's if the president of the United States says he wants to hang elected members of Congress for telling military people not to break the law, or U.S. citizens can be rounded up because they look brown or they have a Spanish accent, it's not much of a move towards just using that as a tool. And the apathy is what prevents you from saying, no, stop. This is not acceptable. Because you're being bombarded with multiple competing ridiculous ideas in which forces you not to get emotionally involved, right?
Okay, so where do we go from here? Well, what do you see? What do you see for the future? It's crazy because it's like, this topic of information, it's so kind of out there.
Here's a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you own a gun?
No.
Do you own a knife?
Yes.
What situation would force you to use a weapon to end somebody's life?
If they were trying to end my life.
Okay. How do you determine whether somebody's trying to end your life?
Yeah, that's like if they're like
coming be right on top of you, right?
House,
not 10 feet away, not 3 feet away.
Right there,
literally be crawling on top of you, right? My point is, we don't even have a perception of that idea. Like, we watch Red Dawn, we watch these movies about, American kids rising up against Cubans and Russians and whatever. But we don't have a sense of emergency and immediacy that our freedoms or our lifestyle are going to be erased, or even our lives in some cases. So when you go to a war zone, it's very real. It's like, boom, a bomb went off there, people's lives are ended, right? And then people get upset and they join the military and they start a fight and blah, blah, blah. It's just a soft erosion of reality, of constant removal of urgency and reality that we have to stop. In other words, this system of knowing what's real and what's not real is critical for us to make decisions. So, again, America's always been in this book, right? It's always been in the world's most dangerous places. Yeah. Partly because we don't believe that bad things can happen here. And bad things do happen here. Yeah,
they happen all the time.
Just like any other country.
Yeah.
So, at the end of the day...
But I meant like looking into the future. Okay, like we understand that we're working off of 100,000-year-old software. Okay, and now we're in this new era. AI's coming at us. How do we digest this information moving forward? Does it all crumble and we go back to fighting and then sticks and stones and rebuild, or are we going to incorporate into AI?
The question I asked you about when you felt like you're threatened. Right?
Yeah,
it's visceral. It's the five senses kicking in, right? It's smell. It's your eyes. It's like you have a sense inside you that you're in danger. Right? If people bumped into you all day long in New York City and one of them just ended up stabbing you, you wouldn't even notice, right? This is my point, is there is a constant erosion of people's freedoms and ability to discern right from wrong. Normalization of chaos, right? So the more time you spend saying that's right, that's wrong, this is true, that's not true, the more you hang out with people who defend that idea, and the more you support people who also say this is wrong, there's a line here as a human being I won't cross, right? So that's the danger. And you're talking...
Have you ever been in a place that has operated like that you've actually seen a breakdown of the system?
Dude, where do you think I spend all my time?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
What amazes me about, for example, when I was in Chechnya, then there were Russian tanks coming into the town I was in. I don't know, a tank can hit from a mile away, more. Tanks are like hundreds of yards away, and they can literally just drive over the house we were in. But the people I was with were like, oh no, there's a party down the road. It's like some corn festival. Let's go there, and then we can leave. And I'm like, okay, my little world, that's like, I want to leave now because tanks are bad things, and, I've never been hit by a tank, thank God, but... And they're like, oh no, they're waiting for it, because they knew how the Russians operated, right? They knew they wouldn't attack until all the tanks were there and they're all lined up and whatever. So in their mind, it was like, yeah, we'll do this and then we'll go do that. So I'm just saying that in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Liberia, in places where it seems pretty civilized until something happens.
Yeah.
That's all I see. And this is where I keep saying the same thing over and over again. It's like we have to draw lines between what's real and not real, because at some point it's going to get real fast and you have to make decisions. And if your tools aren't set up to say, okay, this is a threat, this is a threat, this is not a threat. This guy's trying to kill me, this guy's saying he's trying to kill me, but I don't think he's got a weapon, and I don't, this sounds very esoteric to people. But this country is heading in that direction. We are heading in the direction where people wearing masks, dressed up like they're SEAL Team 6, are driving around neighborhoods trying to seize people. We don't know why. We assume they're after bad people.
And we're very apathetic about it. We're all just sitting back.
Well, and it's funny. We're assuming there's some other thing that's going to fix that, right? And
yeah. If you think about it like Star Wars, it's like the Empire.
It's the
Rebel Alliance. It's like the same thing. But people are rooting for it. They're like, yeah.
Okay, but in Afghanistan, if there was a group of people walking through like that, there'd be guns firing, because that's a threat. And armed people with weapons dressed in combat uniforms is absolutely a threat. It's not law enforcement. They're not there for your safety. they're posing a threat, and you would say, okay, there's an armored vehicle, there's 12 people over there, they have this many kind of weapons, and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying Americans react differently.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. So like information's out there, but what it's really about is us. It's the receptor. It's how we take in the information, how we process the information, and what we do with that
Right.
information.
You and I are talking about something that we feel is important because we know the difference between facts and fiction, or we try.
We try. Yeah.
So when we make decisions in life and situations, you want to be as smart and prepared as you can. We're not trying to kill people. We're not trying to steal things. We're not trying to rob banks. But we're just saying, if I go into this forest for 30 days,
Yes.
what should I be prepared for? What should I bring with me? And what should happen if things go wrong? A plan A, B, C, D, right?
Yeah.
In normal society, we should be thinking that way too.
Mm-hmm.
There's no cavalry coming to get us. There's no helicopter that's going to swoop out and pick you up, and save you from some cataclysmic event. So we kind of think like, okay, but I'll just call 911. It's like, but what if 911 comes and arrests you?
Mm-hmm.
What if the thing that you rely on to save you is the thing that's going to harm you?
Right.
And we're in that situation right now where people don't even go to churches because they're terrified that they're going to be raided. And people don't have a sense of comfort anymore that the government is their friend, because there's no line. There's no hard line between arresting you as a citizen or you because you look like you might be a Mexican.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're like, well, I'm not really any of those. And we've seen the videos, where somebody is getting harassed because he's but he's an American citizen. He's like, dude, I don't have to talk to you. I don't have to talk to you. Like, you work for me. I don't work for you. Like, I'm not breaking the law, but you're about to break the law.
Yeah. We got to remind people.
So we're in that world where truth, what's important and what's not important, is actually, I think, very important.
Yeah. Okay, so what's one misconception about being informed that you wish people would let go of?
I think that other people can tell you things that are true. I think relying on somebody else to tell you something so that you don't have to do the thinking process.
It's like an appeal to authority.
Yeah, and this is maybe a personality thing, but a lot of people, do you remember the old newscaster saying this with the voice of God, therefore that must be what it is? Mm-hmm. Versus today where I can turn on one television channel and they'll tell me one thing. It's not true, and I can turn on another one that tells me something that's not true, and I can turn on one where I don't know if it's true or not. So that authority has been usurped by the need for entertainment.
Yeah.
Like people get their dose of white liberal outrage, from the Midas touch, and then they can watch Fox and get their dose of right-wing outrage, and same event, two completely different argue fests, right? And it's okay, which one is right, which one is wrong? Well, maybe the idea is they're just messing with you. Like, maybe that's the idea, is to hog that time, to eat up your precious attention so that you don't actually focus on things like the economy or liberals, human rights, or sort of the liberal structure that America was built on, that we're kind of okay with things until you really fuck with us, right?
Yeah.
Ken Burns has a new series on the American Revolution.
Yeah.
And I can see that he's sneaking in a lot of liberal ideas, that aren't as pretty as they are when they normally do these American Revolution series. All men are created equal except for black people and people who don't own land and women and blah, blah, blah. So I think he's sneaking in all these things. I think people are looking for sources of truth where they can say, okay, this happened. I saw a video of some guy with a camera phone.
But that's so different. What's the difference between a Ken Burns documentary and a 2-minute clip on an Instagram reel?
So Ken, I don't know how many episodes he's got of this thing, but Ken Burns is biased. He's obviously a liberal. But he's in love with history, and he brings in some very well-versed historical.
But there's like a false equivalency, right? Like if you're just like, oh well, he's biased. I know you were going to go more in depth about it,
okay,
but there's such a difference between that type of bias, which is fact check, taking different points of views, weighing them against each other, and then kind of coming to a conclusion. And
but here's a perfect example.
And another one that's completely just trying to F with you.
This is a perfect example. So watch all the American shows about the revolution you want to watch, right? Form an opinion. Watch all the English documentaries and stories about the American Revolution, and then watch the French ones, and then watch the Indian ones. And
Great. And that's what we should do.
Was that the same place? Was that the same event? Was that literally like what I thought I just saw?
Really good.
And if you do that, you're an expert. You're basically, you've got all the different opinions.
There you go.
And when somebody says to you, 13 colonies fought for liberty, it's like you get it in a very measured.
Be your own fact checker and look for things that disagree with your point of view and ingest it.
But let me add to that. So by getting those different perspectives, everybody had a reason to be or not be part of the American Revolution. But what Ken Burns is doing now is he's tying it right into like the ice little green men thing, the idea that some people are more equal than others, and that there are certain wealthy landowners that had the microphone, and other people were never heard from, and so it's actually a good little sort of, yet again, another...
A bit of a reflection onto what's happening today.
With some contemporary touches.
Yeah.
But the thing about Greek
fascinating.
Thinking was that they were free men, that the individual had a sense of duty and responsibility to society, and that democracy, even though back then it wasn't, just like America, it wasn't a true democracy, but it was a democratic process, right?
Yeah.
That the more educated somebody was, the more functional they were in that society. Yeah. That's something we should think about today.
Yeah.
Is people with knowledge who have gone through the process of forming fact-checking structures and having absolute scientific and factual knowledge of things should have some level of esteem, as opposed to people who have opinions.
1,000%. But we're getting rid of our experts right now. We're breaking down those institutions.
Kid Rock
and everything.
Will get more screen time than any biologist will.
Exactly. Throw it away. Get rid of your social media.
But we're the problem. We're the one that go, oh, Kid Rock's talking shit about whatever, because that becomes entertaining. It's like gladiator fights.
Are we the problem? I don't know. We're the problem.
Because we have to exist in this world in which nothing's meaningful. I want to get on a plane and I want to go to Ukraine and help fix things, but I also want to go to Israel and Gaza and fix it, and I also want to go to DRC, and I want
It's too much.
So by going to all these different wars, all I can do is bring back understanding, right?
Yeah.
This is why this guy's fighting that guy. It may not be pretty. These guys are not necessarily the good guys, but this is who's backing them, et cetera, et cetera. So this is what I focus on: is clarity in conflict, right? I'm not a biologist. I'm not an anthropologist. I don't know shit about Shinola. But what I try to do is get people clear your head, focus. If you want to go to Afghanistan, if you want to go to Colombia, if you want to go to any of these places where you're worried about something, this is how you teach yourself what's important and what's not important. And I'm saying that the purpose of this podcast is to tell people it's not the stream of information and data that you need to worry about. It's the filter you create to let in the good stuff, to adjudicate on whether the information you're absorbing, that tiny bit of information your brain can open up and see, is this helpful, clear information, or are you just getting deluged with bullshit and your brain's turning into porridge?
Yeah, I like that.
Where you don't care about things. You should care about everything.
Yeah, that's good. Since we've talked about propaganda, we've talked about marketing, we've gone into psychometrics, we're talking about information. We should just do one.
Influence operations, but
we should do one on that filter, on just 45 minutes of fact checking and filtering.
It's not that difficult. It's
not.
Literally somebody says this is good, and you go, okay, but that's the manufacturer telling me that. So I'm going to go to a user. Now, is that a real user? Is that somebody I respect or no? I'm going to go to this guy who's actually a musician, and he uses it. I go, okay, I got a good sense that I can make a decision about this.
Right.
Is this group fighting to get freedom from this, or are they just a proxy group for like a Gulf dictatorship? These are all processes you go through. And the more you understand the truth behind things, and when I say truth, it doesn't mean the one that makes you happy. Like who killed Kennedy? I really don't kill. Kennedy's dead.
Right.
Oswald shot him, and that's it.
Yeah.
But if you go down too many rabbit holes, you can connect anything to anything. Right?
Yeah.
But it has to be factual.
Yeah.
And the beauty of the internet is that you can literally make up a conspiracy about anything, and people will chase down those rabbit holes to disprove or approve that thing.
We have to enjoy being wrong, and we have to relish in that.
Well, okay, so truth is important because when you get to the point when people say, who are you and what do you stand for, you should be very comfortable in saying, this is what I believe in, this is what I don't care about, this is what I've done, this is what I won't do, and this is what I've left behind for my kids and my grandkids and for society to look at for 30 seconds before deleting it. And that's it. That's all a man can say, right? That's all you can do.
Yeah.
So anyway, so information is important it's dullness, right? And it's important to at least think about the process of finding truth.
Yes.
And there's a whole
slow down
science buried in the ancient Greek studies that are free to read online that can help you understand what's real, what's not real, how to make decisions, how to form your own personality and your opinions on things, and when to argue about things and when to change your mind. So.
Perfect. All right. Yeah. So everyone slow down, take a walk, get into the forest, come back.
Sit in the forest like, can I come back now?
Yeah.
I'm bored.
Every 5 minutes of social media takes another 10 minutes to detox. And
leave your Game Boy
there
behind.
you go.
All right, dude.